Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bear Pit podcast, where we'll be discussing Stoke City's recent transfers, recent form, and games coming up today. So I think best place to start is Harry Souttar. What's going on there? We've seen bids for £10 million, which for me is just laughable. Like, what bid would you sell him at?
Yeah, it's been a bit crazy, hasn't it? Like recent sort of days, it's all sort of come at once, really, like all the transfer business. I think it's a bit low for me, 10 million suitor. I know it's obviously a big move. Leicester, like Premier League team, he's done really well in the World Cup, but you've got to be looking higher. I think we're sort of stuck in a little bit of a tricky position just because the team isn't doing too well. And so I think if we were maybe challenging for like the top six, I don't know what you think, but like if we were up there, then obviously the price tag would be a lot higher. So I think maybe they're trying to lowball us into just cashing in.
Yeah, but I think they also know as well that we're in a financial fair play problem. They know that 10 million
Yeah,
for us is
exactly.
huge. So if we come back at them and say, oh, no, actually, we think he's worth 25 million, let's say, they'll just go, well, this is the best you're going to get, take it or leave it.
Yeah.
And eventually we're going to go, he's probably at his peak value right now, having just come back from a World Cup straight into the next window. He's probably at his peak value right now. So anything we get for him now is probably going to be higher than what we would get for him for the summer, I think personally, because if you add World Cup on top of that and
Yeah,
all this,
it's true. I think we're not in any position in terms of on the pitch to sell him, are we? I think it's one of those where the finances is always a tough thing, especially nowadays with those, I think I saw Alex Neil say earlier in his press conference that it might end up being out of his hands, and you wouldn't want that to happen, but it could be the case possibly. If the right offer comes in, I can see Stoke going for it and selling up, to be honest.
yeah, but it's 10 days to go now. Like,
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it? I mean, I don't exactly trust them to get the right replacement in, I'll be honest, but you never know. We'll have to see.
yeah, but it seems all a bit late though. 10 days to go. We've not made any signings.
Yeah.
Clark's gone, Fossu's gone today, Bursik's gone. Rumours coming around, something like Gale going as well. You've got loads of
Well, no one left.
people going out. Yeah, well, essentially, I've put a tweet out saying I'll be bringing my boots on Saturday. And I think that's kind of that's how it feels in a sense that we're so low on numbers.
Yeah.
We've not made any signings. Are we going to make any signings? We've been told we have, but nothing seems to come out.
Yeah. You've got to hope so. For a club where we are now, and they've got to. It's a risky strategy, in my opinion, sort of shipping players out and not any lined up. It seems, and even looking to tomorrow, as you say, it's like the right back position. I mean, they've got Ben Wilmot, who I presume will start there. I'm sure we'll come on to that a bit later. But other than that, you're looking at Sterling's maybe coming back, and then Lewis McCarry is coming up. But
Mm.
it's leaving itself a little bit short, as you say, with 10 days to go.
Yeah, well, we're leaving ourselves short. I mean, Lewis McCarry is came back from a season in the Irish League, and it's no
Yeah,
disrespect to the Irish League, but the Irish League and the Championship is a very big step up, and I don't
yeah,
know if we can handle that.
it's different.
So looking now, Harry Clark, that's a bit of a weird one. I think that came out of the blue a little bit. Ipswich kind of had a bid. We all sort of thought, well, is this just joining the dots a little bit because it's his hometown club? But
Yeah,
no, seems to have actually happened. You'd rather
yeah.
play in League One and go up with them than play with us, maybe.
Well, yeah, I think possibly on the face of it, maybe a bit of a more attractive proposition for someone like Harry Clark. He's still young. Maybe wanted to get out of that sort of loan sort of regime that players seem to get into at these big clubs. And yeah, it's a big thing for him, isn't it? Really, going leaving Arsenal permanently. That's probably something that he's not taken lightly. And fair enough to him. If he wanted to leave, maybe it was out of Stoke's hands. Maybe Arsenal said, we're going to cash in on him and take the money. So fair dues. He was a decent player, wasn't he? I mean, never particularly shone, I don't think, for Stoke. It was one of them where he'd sort of come on, he'd look good, and then maybe in the next game he wasn't so good. So a player that we'll miss in terms of having a body in the dressing room, but probably one that you can improve on really in the league in
Mm.
terms of better players.
I mean, well, not a lot of people have really shone for us. I think that's just a fact this season.
Yeah, it's tough, isn't it, when you're playing in our system, in the way the players are playing at the minute is really hard, and maybe something that gets overlooked.
And Tariq Foster as well. That's another
Yeah,
one of those players that I didn't expect to see sold. The strategy looks like, from Neil's perspective, that we're going to get rid of all the loan players so we get more loan players coming in that's more his players? Because I think you're only
Yeah,
allowed 5 in a match day squad.
yeah, of course. And they've had a few injuries like with Kilkenny, but I think maybe with him coming back, they're a bit hamstrung in who to leave out, and so I guess it makes sense to be letting some of them go. And as you say, they're not his players. And they're not playing someone like Foss, who I don't think he started since we came back from the World Cup break. So again, the one that probably won't be missed too much on the pitch, but you can say that for the majority of the squad at the minute. So it's not really an anomaly in that sense. But yeah, he was obviously a decent player, a good lad. Come from Brentford, who are in the Premier League now, and so it probably one of them typical things where he'll go to Rotherham and he'll be really good.
Yeah, keep them up, send us down almost.
Yeah, something like that.
But then if you look at like, would you rate Fosu as a winger? Because it just seems strange to me that we play in a formation with wingers. He's the only winger at the club, and then we decide to, well, he's not needed
Yeah,
anymore. That just doesn't make sense to me.
yeah. Well, Neil himself said, didn't he? He was really the only like wing that he thought he had like in the squad, and then I don't think he's particularly played the wingers, has he? I mean, I went to Preston away in October, and Fossey was brilliant. He was getting up and down the left side. He was playing like a sort of wing back come wing sort of role, and he was really good. And then probably since that game, we've not really seen much of him, and it makes sense to be letting him go.
Yeah, well, I mean, the game I see, particularly with Foster, is always the Sheffield United game. I think that was
Yeah,
probably his peak, certainly in home form at Stoke. You can maybe argue away, but certainly in home
yeah,
form for
he was
Stoke, he
good.
just looked like someone who would get you off your seat, hit the crossbar, and all of a sudden there was just a bit of new energy coming in. So I don't know how we replace that. Have we ever had it? Have we had it from that moment
Yeah,
before?
it's the thing. They seem to get these players in. Like he's like a bit of a Philly Jean Badace kind of guy, wasn't he? Like come
Yeah.
in and get the fans off their seats and sort of a fast, tricky wing. But then it never really seemed to work out at our club. I'm not sure why that's the case.
Mm.
But
Yeah,
yeah,
but
it was a weird one really all round because I don't think he ever suited the style, did he? That Michael O'Neill wanted to play, and he doesn't suit the style that Alex Neil wants to play. So
he was a bit of a panic signing, though, wasn't he? Because I think
yeah,
Michael
possibly.
O'Neill went full out and said, well, we've got Clark, we've got Sparrow. Yeah, surely we need a bit of depth here. And he goes, no, no, yeah, like no depth
Yeah,
at all needed here. We got all our right backs. What right back issue if we're going to go into
yeah,
that? But
that's it.
then all of a sudden he gets injured, then goes, oh, well, Tom Sparrow's making mistakes left, right, and centre. We need to get someone in. So it
Yeah,
just seemed almost like a bit of a panic signing. I mean, it was an
possibly.
accident.
Yeah,
It was an accident. Then it was quite a good accident for those 2 games. Let's face it. But yeah, I think the way that clubs being run almost is concerning to me. I think because if you look at clubs like Brentford and if you look at clubs like Brighton, they operate on a director of football model where they'll get people to scout their players through data recruiting, which from the outset Stoke don't seem to do as much because if you look at the way that, well, particularly the way we've hired managers, we've don't really have a set style of how we want to play, which I think is huge. So we
mm.
got Mark Hughes' Stoke Alona, if we go from there, and then Paul Lambert's sort of 4-2-3. Well, I don't know what you call it with Paul
Yeah.
Lambert. There
Well,
was
it was
no
just to sort
tactic.
of chuck everything at it and try and stay up, wasn't it, Paul
Yeah, throw
Lamberts?
the kitchen sink at it. And then you've got Gary Rowett's like 4-3-3.
Yeah,
Jones's like sort of defensive football, Jones's diamond. Then you
yeah,
get Michael
very
O'Neill's
similar to
sort of
that.
low press, but passing 3-5-2. There's no set style at Stoke, which
No, yeah,
worries me. And we're getting all these players in, and they can't play with each other because we've got a bunch of these players mixed in from different styles. And then adding in players that don't really fit the system either. Like, how do you think the club's been run? Is that down to John Coates since he's taken over as co-chairman, or is that down to more or less the club still being run in 2006, or just maybe something else?
yeah. It's been a fall from grace, hasn't it? In terms of the owners, we've gone from, as you say, a club that we don't run like these sort of Brentford and Brighton kind of teams, but go back 10 years and we were the club that everyone wanted to sort of be run like, and it's a shame because yeah, it's tough to not place blame on the owners and sort of the chairman. Maybe as good as they've obviously been to the club, which goes without saying. It's that obviously they saved the club, didn't they? The Coates family, it goes without saying. Um, but yeah, look, the way, as you say, the way the club's been run recently, in terms of managers, in terms of giving certain managers a lot of money to spend when they hadn't really had the track record of spending that sort of money. Um, it's all a fallout, and we seem to be getting over that bridge with Michael O'Neill, and then it seems to have just gone backwards again. But for me, really, the big thing is sort of the transparency from the board. And I know Alex Neil, sorry, is he's quite coy, like in his press conference. Obviously, we know that he doesn't really give him too much away. But then I think at the minute, the way the club's sort of falling down the league and looking like we're going to be in another relegation battle, which is sort of where we were like 2 or 3 years ago.
Mm.
There's not really been a comment from anyone to say this is what we're doing, this is what we're doing in the transfer market. We fully believe in Alex Neil, which I'm sure they do, but from the outside looking in, which we are, um, it all seems to be up in the air at the minute. It doesn't seem to be like this. There's too much sort of cohesion between players and the manager, and players and the fans, and then the manager to the board. It just seems all a bit spaced out and not working at the minute as a club. And it's such a shame, isn't it? Because for what we know we can be as a club, it's such a fall from grace.
Yeah, no, exactly. But then if you look at like, I mean, that's another one. Michael O'Neill's low press football to Alex Neil's high press football.
Yeah, it's not worked, has it? And I mean, to give Michael O'Neill the first, what was it, like six or so games or something, and
Yeah,
then
they should have just sacked him at the start of the season if they're going to
yeah,
sack
let
him.
him go still like in sort of August time. It was bizarre, really. And it's you have to make of what it is now. And what it is that we're in a relegation battle, and so let's just hope they can come through it. They need to start picking up points soon, and hopefully
It's
that starts.
annoying though because I don't want to get rid of the Coates family. I don't. If the Coates family sell the club, I don't think it's not that we won't get better owners than them. It's just that we won't get better owners financially than them. We're richer than
Well,
AC
yeah,
Milan.
well, it goes
That
without
kind of
saying.
we're not going to get someone who's richer than AC Milan coming to a club like Stoke, who've won one major honour in their history, are sinking in the Championship, have a financial fair play problem. No one's going to want to take that over. Essentially, who's worth that much? So I feel like we probably need to keep them, but we just need to change the way the club's being operated in a sense. Instead of John Coates hiring managers, why can't a director of football hire a manager or something like that? And he would know how to play, hire a manager for that system, and then get players in who play that system, and it all
Yeah,
just kind of
well, yeah.
works then.
To be clear, I don't think the blame lies at their feet solely.
No.
Obviously, they've appointed managers with track records like Rowett and someone like Jones, who maybe was an appointment that they hadn't sort of made, or we didn't really see coming, like a young manager up and coming from a different league. And it's tough. You can't just you can't obviously flat out say Coates family shouldn't be involved in the club, because that's ludicrous to say. They are the club. Um, but there obviously has to be changes. They've been here the whole time throughout all the ups and now the downs, and maybe just a sign of the club the last few years and really not progressing with the times, which is something that seems to still be the case, even though they brought in a technical director early in the season in Ricky Martin, and nothing seems to have changed. It's a shame, but it's true.
I mean, I think the Ricky Martin one, you've probably got to just give it a bit of time. But then,
Yeah,
because he's only been here, well, one transfer window, hasn't he? So I think you probably need to give that a little bit of time. But then at
yeah,
the same point just still lies. We've not seen transparency. We've not seen any sort of word from the board. Like we had
yeah,
the start of the season with Michael O'Neill, and I think that's the last time we've seen the board at all.
yeah. And before that was probably another year or few years before that, and so I think obviously everything needs time to gel and stuff like that, but you don't get time in football, do you? Like there could be time and we could be in League One next season, so it is really in dire straits at the minute.
No, no, exactly. And it's just looking at the performances as well, it doesn't look like a team. I remember Dwight Gale saying on the big screen, talking to John T. Sargent about, are we just trying to find each other out? And I think it was before the Sheffield United game. And I thought that's probably a fair reflection as to where
Yeah,
that we were at that time. But it still seems like we're trying to figure each other out now. And I
yeah,
think
it's
the different styles and stuff like I said about, different styles and things like that, we don't seem to have that kind of cohesion. It's always just sort of, oh, we'll play a ball down there. Oh, it's not hit anyone. Oh, we've been exposed and they've scored. And it
yeah.
just it's
I
the
think
same
well, yeah, I
story.
think putting our tactical heads on. I think simply put, it's like we're too easy to play against,
Mm.
and so I was at Sheffield United last weekend, and they just seem to understand like when to press our defenders, who to press, and and sort of just how to play around us really. And like it showed within the first 10 minutes they'd scored, and they looked really comfortable really throughout the first half. And then obviously Stoke fought back a little bit second half, but it was never going to be enough because yeah, the same cohesion, they're sort of always switching striker partnerships, and someone gets injured or someone's unfit, and there's just not really much sort of there's not really much sort of consistency with it within that team.
And I think I was saying about this to my dad actually, and someone said, "Oh well, he's not got his team yet," and I think he just said something like, "Well, this isn't anyone's team.
Yeah,
It's filled with
it's a
so many
team of
different like
so many
managers."
different players and different like if you bring in a load of loan guys in, then they've learnt their trade under different managers from different loan clubs and the parent clubs as well. And yeah, it just there needs to be a direction, and I'm sure Alex Neil is trying for that. There's make no doubt about that. He's obviously a very accomplished manager, but it's got to be done quickly and it's got to be done soon because we could quickly find ourselves, in the bottom three, and then once you're in there, it's really tough to get out of it.
Yeah. Well, just looking at Reading now, that's our game tomorrow. What are your thoughts for that? For me, it's Tom Ince to score in the 97th minute and us to lose 1-0. But I think that's what every Stoke fan thinks. But how do you think it's going to go, and what kind of threat can we cause them?
Well, I think for one, they've got to take the game to Reading. I think the time's up for sort of playing a defensive style of football and playing like three midfielders who are scared to really attack at home, especially when it's at home in front of your own fans. Obviously, we've been really poor at home this season. I think they've just got to go for it. I mean, it's a shame that Nick Powell's unfit because based on his performance at Sheffield United, I definitely would have started him. But ideally, I'd want to see like three attackers just because I think what's the worst that could happen if they go there and try and play attacking football and get the fans off their seats and they lose, then at least they can say they tried rather
Mm.
than sort of playing like they did against Burnley, like they did against Preston, where they had chances, but it just wasn't enough.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it just surprises me sometimes. There's what I saw particularly from the Sheffield United game, which I think Reading will definitely expose us on, and a lot of teams will expose us on. It was what Ryan Shawcross said on Radio Stoke. He said there's too much of a gap between the midfield and the defence, the midfield and the
Yeah,
attack. So then all these people are going to go into, well, players are going to go into the hole vacated by the midfield into the defence and then keep pressing us. And that's why they've been getting so many chances hitting us on the break. And then, well, I think that particularly summed it up with the last goal with Sheffield United's goal there. But then, same again, the strikers aren't scoring because no one's really creating anything for them either.
yeah, and
Too
I
much of a
mean,
gap.
we started Ben Wilmot at right wing back, and I love Ben Wilmot. He's been really good this season, but he's not a right wing back, and I'm sure he'd admit that himself. And when you're trying to create chances, there's only so much he can do, sort of in the attacking third. And Josh Time is obviously brilliant. He's injury prone, and so he's someone that you want to rely on. But I think maybe Alex Neil thinks that he can't throughout the season.
Hmm.
Hopefully, we see Dujon Sterling start. From what I've seen of him, obviously it's only been like glimpses, hasn't it? But he has been really good.
Yeah,
When I
certainly one on one with the defense with a forward,
yeah,
he's
it's just like
fantastic.
getting forward, and he just he's obviously a strong lad, and he's someone that we need to sort of push us up the pitch if he's going to start with wing backs, which he looks like he's going to do from now to probably to the end of the season.
And I think as well, just getting someone. I think we need a holding midfielder for sure now. And like in so many games, we've been missing and I'm going to get slated for this. We've been missing Joe Allen personally. I
Yeah,
know I'm going to get slated
Glenn
for,
Whelan maybe.
but Glenn Whelan, okay, that's probably a better example. We've been
Yeah,
missing Glenn Whelan, but I think what Joe did was he would come. He gave the ball away. He gave the ball away loads, but he also won it back a fair few times. He would come short, and then you'd lay it off to someone. I think if you look at the goal against Forest last season,
yeah,
the goal that Timon scored,
yeah,
we're all passing it back, and then Joe Allen just comes short for it straight to Smith, and then all of a sudden it starts there. I don't see Baker really doing that. I don't see
yeah. I think
Laurent doing that, and I feel like if they had someone there who would do that for them, then Baker would push up, Powell would push up, and all of a sudden, instead of attacking with twos, maybe you've got. Well, we haven't got Foster anymore, but
no, yeah,
we've got Delat. But we haven't got him anymore. We've got Campbell
Campbell,
going
Brown,
forward. You've got maybe Gale going forward. you've got Timon. Let's say Timon plays left wing. Timon goes forward. Then you've got Baker, Powell, Baker kind of on the edge of the box just to get something off because we know he's got a good long shot. I reckon we would score a load more goals if we did that.
Yeah, I
That
think
one
the
said that
midfield,
one piece, isn't it?
the midfield's massive in any, especially in this league where you have so many like battlers in midfield and there's so many like gritty players. I'll always bring it back to like when we always play against Matt Crooks. I think he's at Middlesbrough now. He's the kind of player that you hate playing against, and we don't have that kind of guy. I think
No.
Jarlin maybe was that, or possibly underappreciated that sort of side of his game by a lot of fans. I think he was, his time was probably up at Stoke when he did leave, but we did see him forming a really good partnership with Baker at the end of last season, and so they've just not had that this season, have they? Like they've had a few injuries. Laurent's been out for quite a while. He started off and then he got injured, and it's tough to like build any rhythm. And there's obviously like three really good individuals in the midfield that I'd start with: Baker, Laurent, and Thompson. But yeah, they're just not bringing the best out of each other. And as you say, probably they do need a bit of like an enforcer, someone that can pick the ball up and isn't afraid. Like they've not got the pressure maybe of the fans and of the expectations on the back, and they just need that someone to sort of drive them forward, as you say. And hopefully they're looking in the transfer market that kind of player. You can only sort of cross your fingers and your toes that that's going to happen.
Yeah, I think the rumors going around that well, if you join all the dots together, you probably land on someone like Ben Pearson on loan.
Yeah, he's always been one that's. I mean, he's like the classic Stoke player, isn't he? Like typical from sort of 10 years ago. He's a bit of a in sort of a wheeling kind of mold. I'd definitely take someone like him. Yeah, he's maybe not sort of the biggest player, is he? Like in terms of stature, but someone that's physical. He's not afraid to put a tackle in, and we definitely need that. It's the kind of player you need when you're at the bottom of the table, as cliche as it probably might sound.
But do we need like do we need Ben Pearson because it's Ben Pearson, or is it more of a case of actually we just need to get the right person in? Like even if it's
Yeah,
I think a lot of fans hadn't really heard too much about Whelan before he came in, but then all of a sudden Whelan became amazing. We
yeah.
just
Well,
something like suits a similar mold, but then we'll do a great job rather than get Ben Pearson because he's Ben Pearson.
yeah. They need someone in that kind of mold, don't they? It can be from, I mean, League One. You look at like Jacob Brown. We got him from League One, and he's
Mm.
last season he was our top scorer. So who's to say they can't get a player like that? They just need someone like that, and obviously they need someone that's going to create chances as well. Because I mean, Will Smallbone when he's played, he's just not been that player so far this season, really.
No, no chance. And I feel like the recruitment's been shocking personally from a summer point of view as well. You've think about the players we've got now and think about the players that are getting sent back or are going to be sold. Flint's probably going to get sold. That was apparently the number one defensive target. And
Yeah,
I think I don't know if you were like this, but I could tell it wasn't going to work at the start because I got a mate who was a Cardiff fan, and he went, "Oh, just don't go near him. He's awful."
yeah,
Essentially, and I thought, "Oh, this isn't what Stoke should be getting." The same with, and then you've got players like Kilkenny's played 3 games. He's not even played under Alex Neil. Kilkenny.
yeah. It's been dead unfortunate, hasn't he? Like Kilkenny's maybe someone. He's maybe in that kind of mold of Pearson, probably not as like aggressive, but someone
Mm.
that'll like win you the ball, and he looks good on the ball, a bit of like a Thompson kind of player. But Flint's been a weird one, hasn't he? Like as you say, we probably didn't need him. Like Connor Taylor, for me, is like probably one of the best prospects at the club. And
Yeah,
so when you're sort of pushing him to the side and bringing in a guy that's championship proven, but he's on sort of the wrong side of 30 years old, and Danny Bart, who we let go to Sunderland under Alex Neil, was probably
better than him.
that
Yeah.
player really. Like he was sort of more bedded into the club, and so you let someone like him go, and then you bring someone who's very similar into the club. It doesn't really fill you with much hope. Like you can understand fans' frustrations when that kind of thing happens.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's just like you said, transparency is the biggest thing as well because we don't know what's going on. I think it's been clearer today what's going on with Alex Neil's press conference of
Yeah,
definitely signing some players. So I mean, that's good. And I feel like there's a clearer message going on today that we had to get rid of loan players because probably financially, let's face it,
yeah,
and then they can add into the squad, and we need a load of new faces. But I like the fact that he has come under a lot of criticism, and probably rightly so at times as well. But I like the fact that he's trying something different. There's
yeah.
in his press.
He's obviously a really strong-willed guy, isn't he? He believes what he says, which is great. I think just maybe fans' patience will wear thin if they don't see like that's kind of thing on the pitch, and maybe so far, like especially after the World Cup break, we've really not seen it. But before that, there definitely was some great performances. We mentioned like Sheffield United and the Preston away game and stuff like that. They played really well, and even like second half last week, they played good. Like they could have got a draw out of that game, but in the history books, it'll go down as a 3-1 win to Sheffield United, and it's those moments that Alex Neil always talks about. It's like they seem to attack, and then the other team will go on the attack and they concede, and you're back to square one.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's just lack of confidence in front of goal, or just a mixture of a lot of things.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, for someone like Dwight Gale to have a lack of confidence in front of goal sounds ridiculous, really, doesn't it? Considering his record in this league, but it does seem that way. Like, especially when you look at Jacob Brown, he's been sort of shoehorned at right wing back, and that can't really do his confidence much favors. And then someone like Tyrese Campbell, he's had maybe the fans on his back a little bit, and he came back just not ready last season, and so you were really hoping this year would be the one where he kicked on, but it's just not happened for him. Obviously, brilliant talent. There's three great sort of strikers there, but just not getting a tune out of any of them at the minute, which I guess is why they've maybe been linked with Lyndon Dykes as well.
All right, so we're going to round this off with what's your prediction for the game?
Tomorrow, I'm not going to be there, which might be for the best. I want to say 1-1 probably. I think it'll be a close one. There's not going to be many goals in it, is there? Like Reading aren't a team that score many. We're not a team that are very good at home, and so it's going to be cagey. It'll be really interesting to see like how he plays, maybe like in the midst of like the speculation, and especially against maybe someone like Andy Carroll or Lucas Shaw, who sort of ran us ragged when we played in the reverse fixture. So I think it could be another tough one for Stoke, but you're just sort of hoping you hoping every week that it's different, aren't you? So I'll go 1-1, hopefully.
Yeah. I think Reading was always a fixture that I always used to think of just, oh, well, Reading at home, that's definitely a 0-0 nailed on.
Yeah.
But then now that we can't actually keep clean sheets, then it's probably not going to be a 0-0.
Yeah.
So I always want to be positive with Stoke and say probably if I were being positive and maybe taking into the fact that the Sheffield United second half, we put that in, then you could probably get a 2-1 out of that, realistically. So I would probably go with 2-1 to Stoke. But like I said, there's so many like hidden problems, particularly in goal with Bonham. We can't rely on him for the whole season. You've got to get someone else in. Turkish lad, Iverson, but I get the feeling.
Well, it seems like Daniel Bentley's gone,
Same.
hasn't it? I think they've said that that's not going to happen. So yeah, goalies, it's another big issue, isn't it, that we've not even like touched on. So I guess that really sort of sums it up.
I guess that really sums it up, that there's so many things to cover that we've not actually got onto one of the main issues. But yeah, I think you can't rely on Jack Bonham for the whole season, and I feel like that's going to cost us, particularly in one of these games. It cost us in the reverse fixture, which you saw when he came steaming out of his box and then completely missed the ball. So
Like the first minute, wasn't it, of the game?
yeah, it's a bit of a crime that he's become our first choice goalkeeper, considering that we signed him to be probably a third choice goalkeeper. But yeah, I'd probably go 2-1 Stoke if we take the performance in. I think if you take the performance into the first half, we could probably get to Reading, maybe score one goal and then make it a sort of cagey affair, but then we could try and see it out and then get booed off. Yeah, no, I hope so anyway. Yeah, if you've enjoyed this, lads, please make sure to leave a like. Do subscribe if you are new around here. And yeah, we'll hopefully see you in the next one when Stoke can hopefully find a win.
Cheers.